A very good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where and when you're watching us from. My name is Mutathi wa Shirawanyaga, Mujiro wa Barea Karigizi, na Gwihoka Kuma Ngongo Shedri Shumaga Huho. Mlithayo, thayo. Today is a beautiful day. Is normally like saying once we are here on African Corner, it must be, it should be, it will be a good time. Today is the 20th of September. The year is according the way they normally say, the year of our Lord 2023. It's a for people who are in this side of Nairobi, they are feeling the pinch. Kuna baridi kidogo, some rain here and there. They have said this weather is not for one. So we will know that as we proceed further. But before we get into the topic of our discussion tonight, let us hear what Miriam has to tell us.
Here to remind you on African Corner, we have a state of the continent and the topics which are interesting to you. So catch us every single Wednesday and Sunday from 8 to 9 p.m. So keep it locked here on African Corner.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much for everybody who's tuning in live. We hope to see your comments and your reaction. So today we'll be talking about the spirit, which way for the African spirit. It's a continuation of where we left the last time when we had this conversation, and it seems that we had not yet, or it is even hard. I don't know if whether we're going to finish today, but just have the conversation of which way for the African spirit. And joining me tonight is a panel of gentlemen. I hope they're ready for this. I want them to introduce themselves before we get deeper into the conversation. I want to start with Bayron Otieno. Bayron, and not a new face, so please introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Bayron Otieno Kochola. Today we want to discuss the African spirit, and unfortunately, I present to you more questions than answers. I am a lover of ideas and thoughts, and I hope this discussion will enable us to forge something ahead so that we can discover a new line of thinking. There's a lot to think about and to discuss and to debate. I am really looking forward to it.
Great, great, great. Let us move on to the other side of the country. Omar, how are you? Please introduce yourself.
I am good. I'm happy to be here. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to mingle, rumble, and have fun. So, just like Byron said, I don't have more questions. I am just here to just have fun, just to be here. So, nice to be here.
Okay, and you know our very own philosopher king is in the house. So please introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and anything like you'd like to share with us tonight. Philosopher King. Please unmute yourself.
Okay. Hello, guys. I hope now you can hear me. My name is Benedict Malinda, a student of philosopher, the philosopher king. Baron, I just said that he has a lot of questions and answers, and I want to tell him that good questions are always not answered. So prepare so well, and I'm happy to be in African Corner. I have been sent by the gods, and for the gods, and always the gods. Thank you. Be our guest. Be our guest.
Oh my, it's already getting hot here. So thank you, gentlemen, for sparing your time to be here so that we can have this discussion. And before we go further, I also like to remind our people out there that our t-shirts are now out. The problem is the way I'm seated, you cannot be able to see them. But as you can see, I'm wearing the new Ashira Speaks t-shirt. So if you want one, talk to me nicely. You never know what will be coming to your side. Now, let me start with you, Philosopher King. The last time you were here, you said there was the philosopher woman who was in labor, and we left at the point where we want to know whether she got involuntary miscarriage. Was the child born? You know, what happened? Just let us start from there, Philosopher King. Tell us what is the status of our philosophical woman who was in labor.
Yeah, I remember we discussed more about the woman being in labor, and I can say that the doctors just came in a good time, and a baby was delivered. But before the end of the show, we're going to know that if this baby was a male or a female, or we are the one to assign the gender to the lady. So I think it will be wonderful. Yeah. Thank
I
you.
hope the baby is not dead.
No. Fully much alive. Fully much alive.
Indeed, thank you very much. And I want to, okay, go to the other side. Omar, the spirit of the African person seeketh. I think that's the best way I can put that statement. And it seeks guidance. It seeks somebody or some way to guide it to the Creator. It seeks a way to move. How then? What is the status quo according to you right now? And what do you think the people should do, or the African spirit should do, so that they can at least find what they seek in Africa?
Well, according to me, the African spirit is in slumber. The woman
Mm-hmm.
is in bed, and the baby is ready to be delivered, ready, ready, and unsteady. So the baby is ready, the mother is in labor, and the mother is in slumber.
Mm-hmm.
So today we are going to
Mm-hmm.
learn and understand, is the baby going to be delivered or not?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And also tell us, what is now the status quo of the African spirit according to you? What do you think we are, as Africa, as a people, in terms of the issues that deals with the spirit? As I've said earlier, the African person, the African spirit seeketh where to go. It goes to some places where we saw the other day what happened the other side of this country, the coast. The African spirit was seeking somewhere to go. We see in Uganda we had an issue. We had an issue in South Africa. We had an issue in Nigeria. You can name them. It is indeed without doubt that the African spirit is seeking somewhere to go. So what do you think then should the African spirit do according to you?
There's a lot of it being in crisis, and definitely the spirit of philosopher King, nadhani wameenda mahali kwa mlima wamewasha kuni moto. They are giving us signals. We are reading you, sir. If you can hear us, please get back. So the African spirits, we have a common dialogue amongst men, and we have this rule that is unsaid for the men, and the rule is that uwezi kuenda kwa nyumba yenye hulipagi rent. For someone who doesn't understand Kiswahili, is that for us men we have an unsaid rule that you cannot go to a house that you do not pay rent for. But let me remind you, let's just put a bat inside there. Have you ever been to a lady's house? That beautiful mama, and she has a fridge, and in that fridge there is food, and you are somewhere there, and that house has a TV. You have kept your legs on top of the table, and you don't have a shirt. You don't know what pleasure looks like, I know it is not your house.
Speaking from experience, Omar.
I cannot put that on air, but I tell you, man, you have no idea how stolen foods can be tastier. So, Philosopher King, thank you for coming back.
So you have said something about putting your foot on. I don't know why. You have not answered my question. What now should be done? What should the African spirit do then?
I think in a very big essence, we have a very essential key item. I think it stems all the way from a family subject, whereby we get to have these rules, we get to be told some certain things. You see, wisdom back in the day used to be passed in a fire setup where the muzee had to sit with young men of a specific age group and wachome nyama, and they have conversations around the fire camp or the campfire. And in Europe, they used to have a one-on-one sort of mentorship. So some of those were to engage the youth on critical thinking, on literacy, to get to have an understanding of how to seek diverse perspectives and how to handle it. And a lot of it would actually also question authority. If you do this, what is the outcome of this? So if you ask me, it stems all the way from a family setup where critical thinking is lacking, religious literacy is not present, I think us as youth need to seek diversity in perspective to get different counts of how people think. I think we need to question authority more. We need to be involved in the community more. We need to embrace value systems that were good, positive. When I came here, I think last time I said, as Africans, we used to say, in the beginning, there was water. Water was not form, and water was life. Thank you. So I'd like
I hear you. I hear you, Omar. I hear you. Thank you for that. And I can see people have started commenting. Let me just read one comment before I go to the next question. I can see Kevin Dito saying, let's wait for the relations to know the gender of the child. African spirit, catchy headlines. You know, let me tell you, Philosopher King and Byron and Omar. You know, from where Kevin Derito and I come from, Kevin Derito, the man from the Goto, we have relations for when a child is born. If it is a boy, we do 5. If it is a girl, they do 4. Now the problem is the people who do relations are women, and today we don't have a woman in the show, so I don't know what will happen, but it's okay. It's okay. Now we've heard what Omar has said. Byron, maybe you can tell us, because I know you're very large on issues of African tradition and spirituality, and we know from the history of what we have heard from the people who came before us, that the African spirit might have been in peace then than it is right now. Maybe you can just tell us, in this current situation that we are in, what will the African spirit do? Shall it mingle wherever it is mingle, Shakahola and the rest? Where? Is it, let me not mention some names. Somebody might take me to court. But Byron, where should should the African spirit do?
I think the African spirit is a bit lost. A bit lost because it is lacking in roots. A bit lost because it has not yet found its way around and how to maneuver. We are a generation that does not know our past. We do not understand our history. We have
Mm,
not really read and understood how times were.
mm,
Um, when we look at matters spirituality, Christianity might seem like it has been here forever, but it is something that has only been here for the last 100 years. 100 years is not a long time. A
yeah.
hundred years is my grandfather. That is 3 people away. My great
Mm,
grandfather did not know the white man, probably. I had never
mm,
heard of them.
mm,
So when discussing the African spirit, I think the main challenge for the African spirit is the lack of clear direction. We are currently fumbling around trying to figure out our way, but that is just my perspective, and I am here to try and share these ideas. I am more of exploring traditional religion because I feel we have really lost that. We have lost a lot of our traditional aspects. We do not know who we are in essence. We do not
mm,
know the stories of our origin. We do not know how we came about, and we have been following a different narrative to try and explain ourselves, and it has been causing a bit of conflict because at
mm.
the end of the day, you are who you are.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you, Baron, for that. Thank you. At the end of the day, you are who you are. We are Africans, and Africa's our business, and there's nothing we can do about it. In other words, you can say, and nobody can tunya you. Now, Philosopher
Yes.
King, I know you have a background in the church, and there's been this issue, especially from the Christian side of Africa, that there's a lot of brainwashing happening in the church, happening in the Christian world. There's a prosperity gospel, hovering in the airwaves of Africa, especially. Let me say, sponsored by the churches mainly. So, what are your thoughts on that? What does that and where does that leave the African spirit? Do you think we are brainwashed, or we are just plain stupid, or what is happening, Philosopher King?
Yes, Awashira, and panelists, I would like to ask to put a face in this. Let's
Mm,
ask ourselves which way for the African spirit? That's a very good and fundamental question. But do we
mm,
take time and ask ourselves which are these spirits that we are speaking about? Which is
mm,
the ultimate spirit,
mm,
which has been too silent? Is it
uh,
us who are too silent to revoke the power of the spirit, or the spirit has gotten tired and being replaced by the Christian idol, the ultimate being, or which is the way? I wanted to say that in Africa we have, when we had the connotation of the word spirit, it comes with both positive and negative connotation. And therefore, the African spirit is divided into two. We have what we call nature spirit and human spirit. Nature spirit, we have seen that like the sky, the earth, but on the human spirit, we have long dead and ghost or recently dead and the recently dead people. So in our question, the quest for African Corner is how to reawaken this spirit in particular. And I'm going, and that's why in the previous debate we said that we are going to reevaluate the face of African religion, right? Therefore, for this child to be born, healthy, there are three fundamental things that we have to put as a prerequisite for the condition of the child. And one of them is the one wave to the African spirit is what we call Ubuntu. It's the spirit of Ubuntu. Second is music and art. Right now, very few of us have those images of our old our old gods in our room. We fear to put them there. Secondly, that's one phase. The word for African spirit, I would like for me to say, is Ubuntu philosophy, bringing people together, and that's why we have the current question in the church. People are going for the spirituality of prosperity, leaving our spirits beckoning at them. And therefore, to revive the African spirit, we have to revive Ubuntu. What do you have to revive Ubuntu through? It's pouring libation. This week, Washida, you might have a beer, but your ancestors have not tasted anything. That's how we are silencing the African spirits, by not recognizing them on matters of ceremonial practices. Secondly, we are just listening to Kaveve Kazoze instead of listening to traditional African songs which praise these gods. That's the second thing. That we are not interested in buying artistic the art which can use to evoke spirits. For our generation does not know how to beat drums. We are not beating drums to evoke spirits. In Africa, we must beat drums to evoke these spirits. But we are busy playing piano and saxophone. Our ancestors are not aware of saxophone. Let us go back and beat the drums and awaken these gods. And therefore, on my first fundamental point, the child has been born. But this child is Ubuntu. The name of the child is Ubuntu. To reawaken Ubuntu in our society today, we need to recognize the place of witch doctors. I'm confidently saying witch doctors in our society today. Witch doctor is the one which has been abused. The antecedent of the word witch doctor, these are the witches. So let us confuse the doctor and the witch. Therefore, to find the solution, first let us practice Ubuntu. Second, let us go to the old music to reawaken our spirits. And third, let us artistic display of our ancestors. And that the naming ceremony should be taken seriously.
Yeah, but Philosopher King, we also want to hear, how is the church really accommodative of this? These days the church has been the medium through which the spirit reaches to the creator, right? Now, I also want to hear your thoughts on the issue of the brainwashing, as alluded by some other people, and also tell us whether you think the church will allow what you're saying right now to happen, or they will say this is uchawi or this is backward,
Thank you for that question. The church is very pragmatic. First and foremost, what we have to rebuild, reevaluate the European conception of African religion. When the white man came, the Muzungu, he thought the African culture is inferior to the Western culture. And that should be the point of departure, that there is no culture which is superior to the other culture. After the Ghana got its independence, the church was more flexible. I remember now we have introduced something we call inculturation. Inculturation. The church is very open to inculturation. What do I mean by inculturation? Is when those mama come carrying the pot on the head and there's fire inside. So the church allows that, for example, in Bible procession. And in
Yeah.
Africa, a pot with a smoke symbolizes the
Mm.
presence of African gods. So
Okay.
therefore, we can see that the church, though the church is very slow to accommodate the African culture, but there's a
Yeah.
way through inculturation. But
Okay.
the other point of the church, the two
Mhm.
divergent sides about the Christ
Yeah.
and the African tradition. There's when the
Mm.
African bishops met in Rome, and they
Mm.
said that in Africa we pour libation.
Mm.
And the priest said that during Mass, because a celebration of the Holy Eucharist, the
Mm.
African priests were advocating for them to pour the blood of Christ down after consecration so that the
Mhm.
gods can partake. But the thing brought the chaos. They said that is reducing the blood of Christ to a mere
Yeah.
drink. So there's still a divergent point.
Okay.
Should we allow the pouring of libation? So
Yeah.
inculturation is there, trying to
Yeah.
imbibe the African culture with the Christian values. But the point
Okay.
of divergent is that the church advocates for celibacy, but Africa
Mm.
does not advocate for celibacy. Right now, I'm a celibate man. I'm a celibate
Yeah.
man. I don't have a girlfriend. So you see, there's a two divergent side, and at the same time, the coin is coming together. So
Yeah.
there is hope. I can say
Yeah.
there is hope for the church for advocating for the African gods.
Okay, okay. We hear you, and you're going to hold you. That one is now on record that the philosopher king is a celibate man. I'd also like to hear from Byron what are your thoughts on what the philosopher king has said. But before you do that, allow me to ask Omar if the same thing is happening in the mosque. We have heard from the church. Want to hear also from the mosque. Is there an issue such as brainwash? If it is there, and how does it happen, because mostly you get to realize that much of the population in Africa is Christian, especially this side of the Sahara, you know so we normally don't get to know a lot what happens in the other side of the Muslim world. So is there such an issue of brainwash? And do you think they say that Islam has brainwashed the Africans? Islam came way before the Christian religion in the coast there. So is there such an issue? Is there a prosperity gospel there? Do you think there's an issue of brainwash? And is the African spirit settled?
Um, well, let me do a deep dive.
Mm,
Value system. You look at J.P. Morgan, the Rothschild, the John D.
mm,
Rockefeller, Manu Chandaria of this world, is that they have something we all don't have. One, a family setup. Two, a value system. And three, an intergenerational wealth creation, as well as an intergenerational value creation. So my question rather would be, how do we make the modern African spirit in a society where we are debating, or the researchers are in the lab trying to cultivate whether a man and another man can actually produce an offspring? So in the Quran, we have a verse called Suratul Ikra, and it starts by saying, Ikra, Bismi Rabbika Alladhi Halak, Halak al Insana min Halak, Ikra wa Rabbuka Akra. It basically says, read in the name of your Lord God, who created you from the clot of blood. So
mm,
essentially, it starts it by expressing that the search of knowledge in itself
mm,
is a form of worship.
mhm,
They did not say that you should start reading the Quran, or you should start reading and memorizing the Quran, though it is something that scholars today would tell you that it is essential that you have to do that. So in its sense, you start looking at, like Byron said, Christianity has been here for 100 years. How do you convince a Muslim who Islam has been existing for thousands, or a thousand plus years in the coastal line, all the way from Somalia, all the way down to Tanzania? They have been experiencing the Arabic culture, the Islamic religion for a
mm,
thousand plus years. So looking at Islam at some point, it was the most advanced civilization in the world.
mm,
And it stressed the importance of learning. It forbade distraction. It cultivated a sense of authority, discipline, tolerance to other religions. And the teachings from the Quran and Sunnah inspired Muslims to accomplish a lot in science and medicine.
mm,
And allow me to say this: the first university was
mm,
called Al Azhar, 800 AD. It was the
mm.
first university in the world. The West called it the source ball of knowledge.
Mhm.
So if you ask me,
Mhm.
the beauty is that in the current world right now, there is AI coming up. And all these that we want to do, all these, we've even seen the AI play basketball.
Mhm.
And there is definitely, if you have to do the physical work,
Mhm.
definitely the AI is going to beat you at it because it's going to be better, because it's taught by precision, it's taught by the measure, it's taught
Okay.
by the millimeter. And the works they can't do, it's the
Mhm.
works of the creation, the works that we naturally just can't do, like in a Pablo Picasso, the guys who were measuring in arts, the guys who were measuring in things that had to do with an emotional aspect. So
Mhm.
I think there's more to it. There's more to it than what just meets the eye.
Okay. I hear you. I hear Omar. Now, there's a reason why, Bayron, I wanted you to hear the two gentlemen first, so that now you know you're the representative of the traditional man here. We have heard from the church, you have heard from the mosque, if I can put it like that. And we have had the submissions of our philosopher king, we have had the submissions of Omar, and they have, and if you have heard them keenly, they have not really tried to, or they have attempted to answer my question, but in a very vague manner. I've asked them whether the two religions are currently brainwashing the Africans. I don't know, you know. And also, I'd like you to, as you answer that, as you react to the both of them, Baron, I'd also like to hear your thoughts on what something the philosopher King has said specifically is, he wants us to go back to the way the African people used to do Kitambo so that they can be able to associate with the spirit, the African spirit, beating drums, as you said. But remember, I want to hear your thoughts. Can that happen in a modern setup? Can we modernize it? And yeah, Baron.
Uh, so I believe we can modernize it,
Mhm,
but to modernize it, we must first understand it.
mhm,
To know which way ahead for the African spirit, we must first understand where we are coming from. You see, Kenya is a majorly Christian country.
mhm,
It is not by accident that we are a Christian country. It is by design. Kenya is a
mhm,
Christian country mm,
mhm.
purely because of colonialism. The British
Yeah.
came,
Mhm,
and by virtue that they came, and by virtue that they were taxing us, that is
mhm,
how we ended up in the church, because the church was the only refuge. It was only church that were offering, the missionaries that were offering education, and education
mhm,
was the only way to earn a living so that we could pay taxes. That was the only way of survival. If you look at history, if we analyze
yeah.
that history, I don't want to go into the history lesson right now, but
Mhm,
we must first understand how this came about, how
mhm,
Christianity came to be. It
mhm,
wasn't, it is something that happened out of circumstance. Our ancestors and our forefathers were forced by circumstances to enter into the realm of Christianity. That is how they ended up there.
yeah.
But due to circumstances of colonialism, which happened for 70 years in this country, their grandchildren and great grandchildren, are still there. And now we are there, but we are very conflicted. We do not understand how things are going. Africa currently, I will say, we are the. Uh, Chinua Achebe in his book actually describes a man called Enoch in Things Fall Apart. He says Enoch observed Christianity with a zealousness, and the people of Umuofia called him the outsider who wept louder than the bereaved. Africans currently are the outsiders weeping louder than the bereaved. We are the outsiders who took Christianity and adopted it and made it our own, to the point we are feeling the pinch of changes in certain values. That is why when you hear things like the Church of England saying that they want to make God gender neutral and they want to
Yeah.
give him pronouns, and now everyone is angry. We are all angry. We're saying no, no,
Mm,
as if we are the ones who came up with that Christianity. We are now
yeah.
redefining Christianity to our own values. When we
Yeah.
hear the Pope saying that the church will now accept gays and lesbians in the Catholic Church, and everyone, there's now an outcry from Africa, and they are saying no, these are not our traditions. What are our traditions? Where did we come from? We fail to understand, and that is why the African spirit is lost. We fail to understand our past, and our past has been systematically eradicated from us. our past, we have been denied our right. We have been denied the understanding of our past. We, whenever they talk about our history and our ancestry, we are told that it is all evil. We had cultures before all this came about, and our
Yeah.
cultures are not bad. Our
Mhm.
cultures were not eradicated because the European culture was not superior to us. The only way in which the Europeans were superior to us was weaponry. They had guns. When someone
Mm.
has a gun to your head, you will convert. It is not by choice. So by understanding that past and by understanding that history, maybe the African spirit can start searching for itself and understand itself, and then we can redefine it. But it will be very difficult to redefine our ancestral values without initially understanding it. We cannot integrate our traditional values into Christianity without really understanding our traditional values. When we say our gods, who are we referring to? What are we referring to? We need to understand our past to move to the future.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Bayron. I can see more comments coming in. Actually, your friend Go Youth Podcast is sending in some comments here. So allow me to go through them. He says that here are a few common elements and practices associated with African spirituality. So he says, one is the ancestral worship. Many African spiritual traditions emphasize the veneration of ancestors. Ancestors are believed to have a powerful uh, influence on the living and are often honored through rituals, offerings, and ceremonies. And this is the other way is nature and animism. African spirituality often has a deep connection to nature, and they believe that all living and non-living things have a spirit of essence. And many Africans' culture practice animism, where natural elements like trees, rivers, and animals are considered sacred. And it says the third one is traditional healers. The traditional healers, sometimes known as shamans or medicine men or women, play a significant role in African spirituality. And he also says that they are believed to have the ability to connect with the spirit world and provide the healing and guidance. And he gives the other reason as rituals and ceremonies. African spirituality involves a wide range of rituals and ceremonies for various purposes. He talks about also the diverse belief system, the also the syncretism in some cases, and lastly he talks about oral tradition. Now thank you for that, Goy podcast. I would like now us to get into the other uh, issue that I like us to discuss here, and the philosopher king we have had. You say the Ubuntu, you have talked about Ubuntu, the child that is born is named Ubuntu. And do you think now it will be easy for us as Africans to take this child and to say, this is our child, this is ours, and we are going to nurture the child, we're going to take care of the child up to the very end? Do you think the church will allow it, philosopher king?
Once I can say that change is good as rest. We need a change, and Kenya being a capitalistic country is not going to be easy. It's a struggle. What do I say is a struggle? The struggle because even the debate of if there is African philosophy has been over the ages. People have spoken about it. People,
Mm,
but when you ask them exactly what they mean about African philosophy, about
mm,
coming together for the African person, you know,
mm,
Sid McIntyre in his book After Virtue speaks of how African people should integrate within themselves and come to a common factor. That is this child. If you want to awaken the African spirit through Ubuntu, then it calls for everyone to participate fully. What do I say that it needs to go out of yourself to the other, include the ethics of the other person. And therefore, if it's Byron, you remember the former president of Tanzania.
yeah.
Tanzania had it at hand. Tanzania had Ubuntu at hand. And you can see the problems of being. I am not a prophet, but the next 5 years, Tanzania is going to suffer because what has been created by the president, it is going to be watered down. Ubuntu philosophy encourages us first to come together, to realize that what makes an African to be an African is not just the color, but the tradition, as Baron was emphasizing. And therefore, this will come to what we call the ethics of the other, trying to emphasize, to feel empathy for the next person. And this brings the aspect of invocation of the gods. You cannot practice Ubuntu if you don't believe in African tradition. That will be impossible. And that's why we are saying that to reawaken these goals, what I want to highlight is very important that let us first consult the medians. There are those who show unatupata kwa nyumbani huko. Those are the people who can evoke these gods. Stop saying, oh, I don't know, reading which history. You go to your show, ask him about the god of the Kamba people, the god of Abagusi. From that point, you realize that the more we come together, the more we reawaken the gods. And that's why we say that Ubuntu is I am because we are, not we are because I am. And therefore, for this child to survive in this kind of environment, we need to inculcate the child with these values. Secondly, and our platform we had said about something to do with the education. What is the role of religion, in education of religion to the young? It's not just to pass exam, but it's to reawaken them. And not to know that the African child has been reawakened by preferring to use the surname more than the first name. If you find yourself emphasizing that you are called Benedict instead of you are called Malinda, then you're on the wrong path. We just have a lot. We have a lot to bring on board. We have to embrace our African identity before we come to Ubuntu itself. And then the problem is that we say in Kenya, everyone for himself, God for us all. So there are some ideologies they need to be re-evaluated. Some ideologies need to be re-evaluated for us to achieve that. And again, sorry, Washida said about the brainwashing. The Christian perspective about the brainwashing, that thing is very fundamental when it comes to. But Christianity also we have some denominations like the Catholics. That's why we allow our priests to be celibate, first of all, so that they concentrate on the matters of God and not women and children. Second, we allow them to study philosophy so that they can have the right tool to reason and to guide the people. If you look a lot of scandal that has happened, they are not from the Catholic Church, they are from Protestant. Because someone will just say, I'm called, the gods have called me to preach the good. Which God? How can you be called as a drop out? And you cannot speak to the gods. So let us emphasize the role of logic in the church, the role of logic in religion, the role of logic in Islam, the role of logic in traditional African beliefs. That's the only truth that can help us to stop brainwashing of the people. And people are brainwashed because they are poor, because they are hungry. We feed them, they will not be brainwashed.
Okay, thank you for that, Philosopher King. Omar, we are seeing that our philosopher or a philosophy woman has given birth to a child called Ubuntu. I want to hear from you. Does the Muslim, or what does the Muslim people think of this child? Will they accept him or her? And what is the thought behind, what are they thinking when they hear of this child that Africa has called Ubuntu? Omar.
Well, Ubuntu is an African spirit. And let me start first from Byron. The gunpowder that conquered us as Africans was a stolen item. Christianity and Islam are both stolen items. They are stolen concepts. Our history as well has been erased by stolen items. So they say that if you want to steal someone's future, then steal their history away, take away their gods. And this in itself created a sense of a vacuum on a good value system. And I would echo back from this guy by the name Ali Mazrui. And he talks about a trifecta in religion. He mentioned Christianity, Islam, and Westernization. I'd want to add a fourth called traditionalism. And all these were different in their own essence. Christianity came with monotheism, and still Islam has the same. Traditional Africans, especially our tribes, especially looking at the Kenyan context, we were still monotheistic. So there is a cut across the board. But then there is something called Westernization. Westernization is where now we have to look at things more from a more rational point. We were asked to now start questioning things. So in its own sense, call it a name, to give it life. And Africans in themselves, they are born on a family unit. We come from a sense of community. We have to go back to that. We have to go back to a family value-based system, whereby Africans have to talk about things. So I was looking at people who have challenges, especially Africans, given our communities. I come from Tana River, and one of the issues that ail us is because our people don't understand themselves. Number one, our people don't understand the resources that are in their hands, and our people do not understand their borders. So, should you go back and ask about people, they clearly understand their ancestry to 9 generations back. People understand where their geological borders border with other neighbors and where their resources lie. So these are people who clearly understand who they are, what they're made of, and how they can cultivate a future forward. So if you ask me, this mother needs to go to the theater, and she needs to we need to address why she's in anesthesia before she actually gets on the delivery bed.
I thought this mother had already delivered.
Pana. This kid delivered bado. We need to understand. Kwa nini she's on anesthesia? Why is she in slumber before she has actually gotten on the delivery bed?
Hey.
So I am ready.
I hear you, gentlemen. And Bayron, Omar is saying the mother is still in slumber, going back to the theater. Lots of our king has already said that we have a child called Ubuntu. Now, if at all indeed, Bayron, we have this child called Ubuntu, in my language you will have said negaitoga wishiarira. That means ni wetu wa kuzaliwa. You get it? So what is the African person or the African spirit thinking about this child? Whether it's born according to the philosopher king, or the mother still needs to go to the theater, either way the child has to be delivered. So what is the African person, now the traditional African person, thinking about this child? Is it an illegitimate child? Are they going to take care of it? And how will the African person plan to nurture this Ubuntu child? Byron.
I concur more with Omar that the mother is still in slumber, going back to theater.
Okay.
I do not think we are having a gender reveal. Because the African spirit still has a long way to go. You see, firstly, when I say we need to trace our history, I am not talking about the books. Because the history that is in the books is the history that was written by the victors of that war, and that is the white man. That is the history that is there. When you look at the 844 system and the current system, even at least the current system supports the African traditional society values in some aspects. But when you look at the 844 system we went through, the African traditional society was barely mentioned in it. We were taught about Christianity and Islam, and that was it. We were not taught about our African traditional society values. It was just skimmed across. And so we need to rediscover ourselves first. We need to go back home, go and look for those with the source of knowledge, go and look for the people who actually, because I believe some of our grandfathers are still here alive, but barely find time to talk to them and listen to the real history of what was happening during the time. When we hear about animism, when you tell people about animism, they find it very strange. They think, demons, demons. But do we really understand it? There is a flaw in that we lack the knowledge, and we refute, and we do not even want to understand anything about it. We have pushed ourselves away, and we are embracing something we are lost in. And I think that is the challenge henceforth. And there was also the question about not brainwashing. Prosperity gospel is there, and we can see how much it has really cost people. A lot of people have died because of prosperity gospel. That is prosperity gospel is how preachers have managed to commit massacres in lots of places. That is how people are dying because someone is telling you you're going to prosper. People are dying, and they have died for centuries under the
Yeah.
guise of religion. But
Yeah.
that is not something that we can change for now. For
Mm.
now, I think the best course of action is to first try and understand ourselves, because as Africa, we are a lost people. We are a lost people. And the first step is
I think
accepting our state of being lost and then trying to rediscover and find ourselves.
Okay, I hear you. Now we have a problem now because the woman has been taken back to theater, and Philosopher King will be telling us what is happening. But before Philosopher King, you do that, allow me to take a very brief break so that we can come back and finish the other part of the show.
You know, when you see me, it is fun and interesting. And this time round, I get to bring to you a fun day, which is brought to you by Washira's Peaks, who are the founders of the great African Kona. So the day is going to be on the 30th of September. The entry fee is going to be 500 shillings paid via M-Pesa, and the place is going to be the famous Nairobi Arboretum. So, come, let us have fun.
Yes, as Miriam is telling you guys, we still have our fun day coming up this 30th of September. So be there, be seen, or be seen to be seen. It will be happening at the Nairobi Arboretum. So sign up, look for the details across our social media platforms. You will find them. And if you miss this, I don't know where you'll be. So we hope to see you then so that we can have fun and a lot of fun. More comments coming in. Leave, laugh, and love saying he's tuned. Thank you very much. And then we have Mordecai from France. Mordecai saying that only a few traditional African values can be retained. Most of our values and practices are now outdated. We all need to rethink our future. Thank you. And he also says that Western religion, Islam, Eastern sounds nonsensical to me. These denominations are clearly irrelevant in the face of logic and in the modern world. Okay, we hear you. And then I can see Live, Laugh, and Love saying that culture is the best. White man came to destroy us with the cooked literature. Okay, we hear you. Thank you, guys. Continue sending in your comments. We'll be reading them through and reacting to each and every one of them. Now, Philosopher King, let us answer the question, the elephant in the room that we have that we're still asking ourselves up to this time. I also want you to tell us why the situation of the woman, our philosopher woman, how it is. You know, Omar and Baron has taken her back to the theater, and you had delivered the child. So I don't know what is going to happen now. And as you're telling us that, I want you to answer the elephant question in the room. Which way for the African spirit? Which way for the African spirit, Philosopher King?
First to say that Omar and Byron were very quick to judge a child, but this child already has a twin. That was the first child. The journey is not yet. The journey is not yet. The woman was pregnant with the twins. I don't know why they are quick to judge the first child without saying that the man has another one.
Yes.
And, now, about which way for the African spirit? And we still insist that one way we have been given by the woman is to go back to the Ubuntu spirit, is to go back to the provoking the gods. Unless the gods have been provoked, the gods cannot answer anything. Second, I want to tell you, this issue of brainwashing, first of all. People are brainwashed because they are hungry. They don't have food. Give those fellas food and they will not be brainwashed, man. Vulnerability of Africans makes them to be brainwashed. Secondly, which way for the African spirit? African spirit, we must find a common middle point in which is that thing that can unite Christianity, can unite Islamic and traditional and the traditionalists, There must be a common factor that can unite these three. And if we can be able to unite it, then we can be in harmony. And let me propose this. Any religion, including Christianity, that does not respect the dignity of the human person, then it's not the right way to go.
Okay.
This is what I'm saying. If you find that your religion has a way of manipulating and manipulating the minority, then there's a question in that. If you find in African values, there's one which are advocating for sacrifice of people, whatever, in as much as to appease which God, respect for human dignity must be the way for the African spirit, because it's the foundation, it's the backbone. For example, if we advocate for the killing of a human person, who will remain? Who will remain? So we must have a common denominator which can unite the African person, the Christian person, and the Islamic person. First, I saw in the comment that the white came with this literature and the book literature. In fact, the Western philosophy came to take away our ignorance. If we have not benefited from the Westernization, then there's a very big question mark. Because Africa, not that we never have a religion, but we use the Western culture to evaluate that which can be wrong in our religion. And therefore, the way for African spirit is to go back, reevaluate those things that does not concur with the dignity of the human person, we drop them away. Those things that embraces the dignity of the human person, like sharing, caring, honesty, the Ubuntu stuff, then must be upheld. And that is my stand for today.
Okay. Thank you very much,
philosopher. Warn you. Let the child who is coming might be more healthier than the child that has been delivered. So we should not be judged by the last child. We can't return this child to the womb. We can't return the child to the incubator of knowledge, but not to the womb. The child cannot come back again. We cannot accept that.
Thank you, Philosopher King. Now, Omar, we are asking ourselves, as we wrap up the show, the elephant question, as I've said when I was asking the Philosopher King, Omar, which way for the African spirit?
So for Philosopher King, yeah, like I said, the African concept demands a man to be polygamous. So you might be talking about the child of the second wife. Yeah, and we are here.
How many children are we? How many children do we have now?
It's only for Christians that are allowed to only have one wife. Okay. Muslims are allowed to even have up to 4, and you are not somebody's husband until you hit the 4th child. African traditionalists, we were never allowed to mention the number of kids we have or the number of wives we have. So, Makiu, history never fails. History never fails. We have seen cases where countries of Christian civilizations have failed. We have seen ones that have had Islamic civilizations have failed. We have seen sectarian civilizations failed, and a very recent case being Lebanon. And I'm not going to mention the other countries, but just learning from Lebanon, they have had a 15-year war between Muslims and Christians, and in 1995, they decided to form a government where they have Christians and Muslims on the same board, and then it became a very sectarian government. And corruption was a very key ingredient into why the country in itself failed. And look at history, is that Lebanon at that time was the mogul for the Middle East. Could not transact money or move money around of foreign descent without talking about Lebanon back in the day. And we've seen what that has done. So if you ask me which way for the African spirit, the first child has been delivered. The second child is still in labor. And we have taken the mother to the theater. We need to understand why she is in slumber before she has reached her delivery time. We have not found anesthesia. So the only way we can actually have that kid delivered is through surgery. And we need to put that mother on, what is this thing they put on the nose, where she has to breathe through oxygen. So it calls for Muslims. For instance, for me, I speak for the Muslims, and I need Muslims to differentiate between Islam, Islamic culture, Islamic religion, and an Islamic value system. These are all very different. It calls for a redigestion of self, establishment of history as a study case from our fathers as being part of the problem, and we denying them to be part of the solution. First, we need to redefine what it means to be a modern African, to have a modern African spirit. We need to establish a very strong African anchor of a value-based system, be it from the African traditionalists, be it from the atheists, be it from the Muslim, be it from the mushroom movement, be it from Christians. Father Philosopher King, I'm calling you, sir. I echo what you have said, and I am calling for us to redefine what it means to be an African or a modern African. And I like Ubuntu. We need to bring it back. We need to redigest what it meant for our forefathers, what history has made us to be where we are. I think history is part of the problem, and it needs to be revisited, restudied, and re-engaged. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Omar, for that. I hear you. I can see live, laugh, and laugh saying that tradition is pure truth of originality. Tells who you are. Mutugodwe Zabagwa. That's what it means. It means that Mutugodwe Zabagwa Rui. You cannot just go to the river and bathe away all the traditions and cultures and the ways of life that were done. That does not happen. I don't want to allude who does that. Take people to the river and then he's also saying that the whole Africanism should be retained. It's not demonic, but preachers are failing people wrong information so that they can continue earning. Thank you for your comment. Bayron, you are I keep saying this, I know you are very passionate about tradition, African tradition for that matter. Which way for the African spirit?
First of all, I've heard sentiments from Omar about the mixing of religion and state. We can already see that mixing religion and state has some very strange consequences, some of which we are currently facing in this country. Right now, we can see, for example, the government is sponsoring a preacher to come and do a nationwide tour in this country, which is something very strange, because it is not the role of the government to promote religion. It is not the role of the government. So, firstly, you see that is part of the challenge of mixing those two things. I think as I have argued throughout this argument, the only way for the sustenance a tree cannot grow without roots. We need to find our roots first. We need to analyze who we are. We need to find ourselves, and then we can grow. The African spirit is stunted in growth because we have not found our roots. 100 years is a very small timeline in comparison to other religions that have been here for 1,000 years. So the African spirit really needs to evaluate where it has come from, how it came about. When we talk about the spirit of Ubuntu, what does it really mean? Does it, because all we know currently is it means sharing, but are we analyzing those deeper values? The deeper values, our values are very different in Africa, but as a whole, we can create something new with it, but we cannot create that new thing without understanding what it is first. So my call for action is look for your roots, understand yourself first. Once you understand yourself, we can figure out where the African spirit is going. But it is pointless to figure out where we are going without understanding ourselves and knowing our roots.
True. I hear you. Thank you, Bayron, for that. It's been a wonderful and awesome conversation with this gentleman. Once these guys are here, it's always spilling content after the other, and I'm really happy and also proud to be associated with you people. Now, I know you have pretty summed everything that you wanted to sum up, but just allow me to, because I'm really enjoying the show. Let me break a little bit of protocol here and allow you guys to give your final sentiments, Yeah, I know. I know the other one was like to be the last one, but I'm going to start with Bayron just from where you left. Give us your final submissions so that we can be able to wrap up the show. Bayron.
Uh, my final submission is know
Mm,
who you are, know
mm.
yourself. Once you know yourself, nothing is impossible. But so you need to discover yourself, find yourself, and know yourself. In that way, the African spirit can forge ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Bayron. Omar, let us hear your final submission.
Well, if you ask me, I call out for all those guys who are going to mushroom to come out to understand our history for past
Mm,
generations. I would want you to link your history yourself to the past 9 civilizations or 9 generations going backwards to
mm,
understand what made you in your DNA stand out. For
mm,
most Kikuyu, you guys are known for business. Yeah, well, you never know. Maybe one or two of your grandfathers were chief elders. So maybe you might understand why it comes out naturally for you to
mm,
just lead in specific spaces. Maybe
mm,
you'd understand why it comes naturally for you to, lenga that mapera that is on the tree. You know. So yeah, you never know. So I'd call out for us to mushroom, bring out the history, let people know what your forefathers were about. Let them know about your sub tribes. For instance, I was hearing about when you talk about Kales, people just hear Kales, yeah, and it's just Kalenjins, yeah. They just don't know the underlying sub tribes that are inside the Kalenjins. When people hear about the Pokomos, they just think we just Pokomos. They don't understand the sub tribes inside the Pokomos. They don't see the clans inside the Pokomos. When we
mm,
talk about Kuyus, they just don't understand. They think that everybody who speaks Kikuyu is just known Kikuyu.
mm,
Apparently, it's on particular sections. People from Mount
mm,
Kenya talk different than people who are, let's say, the ones in Kikuyu. We need to
mm,
understand what made us to be who we are.
mm,
I would want us to, in the future, I would want us to see more content about our history, about our ancestry, what made us to be who we are. So I am
mm,
calling on for that content. We're going to put it on blog post, on TikTok, on Twitter. We're going to have a YouTube channel that brings out that culture of what it meant for you to be or exist in your particular tribe.
yeah.
So I want to call you out to teach us about your history. Let us learn to be African. Let us learn to understand what it meant for you to be African. So thank you very
Thank,
much.
thank you, Omar. Thank you very much for that. Indeed, we are going to take up the call. Hopefully, the African gods will be on our side. And last but not least, Philosopher King, I want to hear your final submissions so that I can wrap up this discussion tonight. Philosopher King.
Yeah, I can echo the words of Mbiti that an African person is notoriously religious, notoriously religious.
Mm,
Uh, and therefore to go ahead we must rejuvenate the spirit of the African person.
mm,
And I would say I tell my viewers, don't fear to invoke the gods. They're just waiting for your call. Another thing to conquer people, if you want to destroy people, first destroy their religion. Then you are done with them. You are done with them. But
mm,
if people want to rebuild themselves, let them go back to the trust, reawaken the beating of the drums by those shows. Let us consult the medians. Let us practice what we call the African identity. And
mm,
again, as Byron has said, know your roots. Margaret Agore in the river and the source knows that you cannot know where you are going without knowing where you are coming from. And I suggest to
mm,
every if you go and watch this movie, it's called The Roots from West Africa, The Roots of Kunta Akinte. Then you're able to
mm,
know that the power of the African gods goes
mm,
beyond space and time. Last and not the least, try to integrate. It's only a fool is one who knows that his mother is the best cook. Try to take something from Christianity, something from tradition, something
mm,
from Islamic, then
mm.
have an average of them. Then that's the way for the African spirit. And
Yeah.
thank you for the first delivery of the child. The child is healthy, the child is Ubuntu, the child is notoriously African. I don't know
Ah,
about the other three, but I know the one who has come from. So see you in the next show. And don't fail to be with us in African Corner. Here we
yeah.
diagnose people,
Mm.
And here we don't encounter religiosity of miscarriage in Putus et Sem. Thank you so much. I salute you wherever you are.
Thank you. I don't know. I don't know how I can sum it up. I think you guys have done a really wonderful job. I keep telling people that there's a song that goes in Kikuyu that tells people go back where your blessings are. If you think you know where your blessings are, go and seek them where they are. And most of the times, if you're not wrong, your blessings are at home. So it is high time for you to go and seek your blessings at home. The African spirit will be at peace at home. I like telling my friends, you cannot take a Toyota spare part, put it into a Mercedes Benz. It might work, it might move, but eventually it will break down. So it has to go back home to get the right spare part so that it can move forward. And just to say something that Philosopher King has reminded me by Mbiti also, that I am because you are. And he has not said something. It goes further and said, and because you are, I am. Quite beautiful. So I like to thank everyone who has watched us live. I hope we are going to further this conversation ahead, and we want to see whether the other child, what will happen to the other child. This seems like an interesting sequence of conversations. I think we can just start another show that is basically on the African spirit. It is nice. I want to thank everybody who has watched us live, everybody who has shared their comment, and everybody who has shared this broadcast with someone else. We really appreciate. And in a very special manner, allow me to thank the gentleman who has been here discussing, dissecting. I don't know kama wamekuwa wakunga leo, wengine wamezalisha mzazi, wengine wamerudisha mzazi kwa hospitali, but either way, it is what it is. I want to thank you very much, Bayron, Omar, and Philosopher King, for being here. It's always a vibe when you're here, and I don't take it for granted. I appreciate it. And with that, I'd like to remind you guys, we have our fun day that is coming up. Remember to sign up for it. And also, if you want the Washira Speaks t-shirt, the new one, will be posting them on our channel, on our platform, so that you can see how the t-shirt looks like. And you want it, you can reach out on those social media platforms. So also stay tuned for State of the Continent coming this Sunday. We appreciate you. Continue staying tuned, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And with that, I would like to say, my name is Mutadhi Washira Wanyaga. Dayo, dayo, dayo.
When you see me, it is fun and interesting. And this time round, I get to bring to you a fun day, which is brought to you by Washira Speaks, who are the founders of the Great African Kona. So the day is going to be on the 30th of September. The entry fee is going to be 500 shillings paid via M-Pesa, and the place is going to be the famous Nairobi Arboretum. So, come, let us have here to remind you on African Kona. We have a state of the continent and topics which are interesting to you. So catch us every single Wednesday and Sunday from 8 to 9 p.m. So keep it locked here on African Kona.